The best way to play Skyward Sword is no longer on the Wii. It's on the Nintendo Switch, and we're going to talk about that in this review of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. Let's get into it. Before we kick this video off, I want to say that this is actually one of my all-time favorite Zelda games, if not, truthfully speaking, being my favorite Zelda game of all time, because I think it's got the best story and the best gameplay. At the same time, I can understand why some people nitpick, because while I do think the gameplay, when it's working, well, when it was working on the Wii, when it was working really well, it felt really good. You were really immersed, but then there was always these little hiccups and nags that took you out of the immersive experience, and it's something that a decade later Nintendo is seeking to fix with the Nintendo Switch version of this gem. Now, there's a lot of things that's just tweaked up and changed and upgraded in this version. This game has been smoothed over and beautified, so yeah, I'm excited about this. And like I said, I know it's controversial to say this is the best Zelda game. It is for me. That's my subjective opinion. If you don't agree, hey, you're entitled to it. Let's get the conversation going down below. If you know, hey, just don't hurt anyone. But yeah, in this video, we're going to be doing a review of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD for the Nintendo Switch. I was not provided a review copy of this game, but it doesn't matter. I don't feel like I need to get a review copy of every game that I want to cover. If I love it enough, I'm going to cover it. So, hey, this is one of those situations. And with that being said, if you're new to the channel, I'm Mekel Kasanova, Hawaii content creator. I host the #1 podcast in Hawaii, the Kasanova Podcast, where I interview various content creators, celebrities, voice actors, people in the gaming and tech industry, and so much more. So if you want to check that out, it's going to pop up in one of these corners for the video variation of it, and if you want the audio version, it's down in the description below. And if you want to support this channel, we are 100% Patreon supported, as well as channel members supported. Links for those are down below. And yeah, sub to the channel, hit the notification bell, all that stuff, you know, the YouTube typical stuff. You got to ask for that, because sometimes people will watch a video and be like, yo, that was a damn good video, and go about their day and forget that they should probably have subbed to the channel. So hey, sub to the channel. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into this review of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. Skyward Sword is the origin point of the franchise, and is where the Legend of Zelda begins. The story kicks off with Link finishing up his training to become a knight, with him passing despite the interferences from his rival and my main man Groose. Link then meets with his childhood friend Zelda, not a princess in this iteration, however, who eventually gets blown away by a mysterious dark tornado and whisked away below to the clouds below Skyloft. After recovering from his injuries, Link decides to set out on a journey to save his childhood friend, and yet, unbeknownst to him, would go on to be drawn into a never-ending battle with an ancient evil. Gameplay. The original game utilized full-on motion controls, which required you to either have a Wii Motion Plus add-on for your Wiimote, or a Wiimote with the Wii Motion Plus built into it. Or if you were fortunate enough to be able to purchase the collector's edition that came with the, golden Wiimote, that was another option for you. All of your sword swings and attacks have been mapped to the right stick, making it feel much more like an enjoyable experience. And while not everything has perfectly been smoothed over, keep in mind this was originally never meant to be played any other way than with motion controls, it is a marked improvement over the original release. If you were a fan of the motion controls, then you can grab the Joy-Cons and use them in much the same way that you could with the Wiimote and Nunchuck, with all the same inputs and more. If you were lucky enough to pick up the Skyward Sword HD Joy-Cons, man, this is rare. I haven't even opened mine, but it's a beautiful aesthetic. These are incredibly rare now too. Like, people are scalping these, so I hate scalpers. Like, honestly, I feel like scalpers are ruining not only gaming, but just any form of enjoyment we can have, especially during a pandemic. How are we almost like a year into the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and S, and people still can't readily get either one of those? I know this is like a Nintendo video and I'm talking about PlayStation, Xbox. But still, the whole point is I hate scalpers, and I'm glad I was able to get these right here. I probably need to get a second one, which I actually will open because I never plan to open this. It's a collector in me. But anyways, back to the review. You would argue that the Joy-Cons are not as accurate as the Wiimote with Wii Motion Plus, but I personally find them to be a tad bit more accurate. Yes, you will have sometimes moments where you'll need to do a quick recalibration, but that is nowhere near as much as it was in the original with the old Wiimotes. Camera control is mapped in a way that has you utilizing the left bumper while moving the right stick in order to move around the camera. It does take some getting used to, as you might sometimes run into issues such as accidentally swinging your sword, so make sure you take your time to adjust to the new controls, be they traditional or motion. Another of the best additions to this HD remaster is that it removed a large portion of what made the original release's intro almost unbearable, and that's in removing the bulk of the tutorials. In the original, you couldn't walk 5 paces without being hit with a tutorial, and it really bogged the game's pacing down monumentally, especially in the opening act. Now, those tutorials are all optional, including most of the ones involving the most annoying offender being Fee, who would bring the game to a halt of roughly about 162 times or so in the original game, just to point out the frickin' obvious. Bringing the majority of Fee's interruptions to being optional allows her to be a much more witty and enjoyable character, and I'm very grateful that they decided to add those quality of life improvements in it. The upgrade system is still in place, with you needing to collect monster parts to upgrade your shields, and since the controls are so much more improved, it makes this aspect of the game no longer the chore that it once was. The stamina system is still there from the original, although it's much more limiting than the one in Breath of the Wild, and is still upgradable by completing the main quests, which are all normally fun to engage in. The game is, well, with the exception of Breath of the Wild, the longest title in the Legend of Zelda franchise, and it has some of the longest and most intricate dungeons the series has ever seen. The sheer scale of a lot of the dungeons and puzzles within them have me, I'm always astonished with how they literally would have you thinking way outside the box to complete them. And it's because of this level of brilliant dungeon and puzzle design that it made me miss them when Breath of the Wild decided to forego them in favor of these bite-sized shrines. Graphics. The game looks a lot better than the Wii original, as the graphics are noticeably touched up, removing the bulk of the jaggies and pixelated edges and running buttery smooth too. The original game was 480p and ran at 30 frames per second and utilized a 4:3 aspect ratio, whereas the HD version runs at 1080p 60 frames per second docked and 720p 60 frames per second in handheld mode, while having a 16:9 aspect ratio. Everything looks and runs substantially better thanks to the new hardware, and definitely breathes new life into this decade-old game. Audio. The music in this game has always been phenomenal, and in the HD remaster it is no different. The main theme of Skyward Sword is Zelda's lullaby played backwards. Everything has a massive orchestral feel to it that, going back to this title 10 years later is still just as grand now as it was back in 2011. If you're used to the voice acting in Breath of the Wild and the Age of Calamity, then you will be disappointed here because this game doesn't feature any voice acting outside of the series staple of grunts, yells, and colloquiums. Downsides. There aren't many downsides I can think of, but I'll name a few, and one is the fact that its controls will still take some getting used to and aren't fully perfect. Well, no game is perfect, but regardless of whether you use motion controls or you use the newly implemented traditional controls, it's going to take some time to get used to these, again, control. I know I've said controls a lot here, but you get my drift. It's going to take some time to get used to it. The other thing I can see a lot of people getting off-put by is how many times the game can feel like it's dragging on for just too long. Many times you will hit certain story points and it will seem like you're just working towards the end, only to have the game make you realize that you're only 25 to 50% done with the main story. It can honestly feel like an utter slog at times, and especially some dungeons and puzzles. The biggest slap in the face to the fans is putting the fast travel from Skyloft to the Earth below behind the Zelda amiibo, which is near impossible to find as it's out of stock everywhere as of this recording. This is the second time that Nintendo has pulled a stunt like this, as they previously did this with Twilight Princess HD with the Midna and Wolf Link amiibo, which, unless you had it, locked you out of the portion of the game's content. They've also done this with Metroid 2 Samus Returns on the 3DS, so this isn't new, but it's still a very frustrating thing that Nintendo has been doing. So my suggestion is to just go on Amazon and buy some amiibo cards to get around that nonsense. The wrap-up. Skyward Sword is the biggest Legend of Zelda title, and look, I know that's a controversial hot take, I know, but I say this because from the stance of story, gameplay, when it was working really good, and again when it's working really good here, and general world immersion tied in with the most lovable versions of Link and Zelda and my man Groups, make this the best Zelda for me. I love this game back in 2011, and even with its wonky controls, although sometimes they can be incredibly brilliant when they decide to work, the world building and story could not be beaten by any other title in the franchise. A decade later, and we had the definitive way to play this game, and honestly at this point there's no other reason to ever go back to playing the original game on the Wii outside of for nostalgia purposes. But when you've got the definitive version of the game that really just allows you to fully enjoy this the way I guess the developers wanted you to, and also in ways that they didn't want you to, but hey, I mean, it's an upgrade either way, then you know, why not go with this? I mean, if you have a Switch and want to embark on one hell of a journey, then The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD is a game you must definitely own. The verdict? Look, stop this video and go out and buy it right now. And that's a review for The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD for the Nintendo Switch. Again, I had such a blast playing through, like literally going through this game again, because I haven't touched this since 2011. I almost said 2010, but 2011, you know, and that was like literally, if we were to step in a DeLorean and go back in time, 2011 was really a crazy year for Nintendo, because not only did we get Skyward Sword, but we also had the whole Operation Rainfall. I don't know if you guys remember that, where we got Xenoblade Chronicles, we got The Last Story, and we got Pandora's Tower, which I've got all three, and it was just insane. It was so insane, and it's just one of the rare times Nintendo actually like catered to the fans and listened to the fans, because we almost, I mean, the other three games we weren't really ever gonna get. I mean, they made no effort, and plus Xenoblade Chronicles, the only way you could get that for the longest was trying to go to GameStop, and you know, because it was exclusive through them. And then what they would do is they would gut the cases, open up the brand new copy of the game, and then mark it up like $20, $30, $40. Like, it was insane back then. And I have so many stories about GameStop, both positive and negative, because I also used to work for them way back in the day. But yeah, you know, and then this game coming out, it's just like, this was really a game that I really loved, and it's crazy because this game divided the fan base, I think, way more than even, you know, Breath of the Wild did. But either way, I think this is the best way to experience it. If you didn't like a thing, you might change your mind now. And if you're new and you've never played this before, you're going to be in for a treat. And if you can deal with the slogging of, like, you know, many of the areas of this game, then I think you'll find this to be one of the best Zelda games ever to be released. So with that being said, that's the review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Whatever your thoughts are, let's get the conversation going down below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, whichever one you want to go with, comment sections there, speak your mind. Also, if you want to take the conversation further, we do have Discord as well as Guilded. Links for both of those are down below, where you can, you know, hop in and just conversate. It's easier to get in touch with me there than it is to, you know, comment section. I mean, I answer my comments, but, you know, I'm not as on that as I am Discord and Guilded. But anyways, hop on in there, and if you want to pick up a copy of this game, I'll have an Amazon affiliate link down below as well. So all that being said, I'm signing out. I'm Mekel Kasanova, again, Hawaii content creator, host of Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Kasanova Podcast. I hope you had a great one. If you want to support what we do here, then Patreon, channel memberships, they're all down below. Start as little as $5 a month, gets you insight and early access to content, updates, input on stuff as well. So, hey, might be something to consider. Yeah, and if not, hit the like button, share it with someone you think would enjoy it, sub to the channel, and yeah, become part of the community. All that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Deuces wild, too sweet, be the elite. I'll see you on the next one. Peace. Mahalo for making it to the end of the video. I really appreciate your support by those of you who like the videos, who watch and who subscribe. And for those of you who are my Patreon supporters, thank you for your continued support because you help make this possible. If you enjoy my work and you'd like to support what we do have Patreon on patreon.com/Mekel Kasanova. We also have Coffee as well as Subscribestar. So there's various methods if you want to support the work that we do here. We also have channel membership, so make sure you check that out. That way you get up to date on all the latest and greatest content that comes here, and first, and exclusive content as well. And if you enjoy the work that I do and you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. So with that being said, I'm Mekel Kasanova, Hawaii content creator. I hope to see you on the next one. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button and ding the notification bell. And all that being said, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.